Now I'd like to introduce Christina Daves. Orange must be the theme today. I see some orange running around. Christina has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and in the last decade, she's become the designer and manufacturer of many fashions, which are award-winning accessories made to make medical devices fashionable. After funding the manufacturing of her new product line, Christina found that she had no budget left for her pre-art campaign. Imagine that, right? It's expensive to get this thing up and running.
Entrepreneurs out of money.
That's right. She taught herself everything that she could about public relations and set out to get her product in the news. In less than a year, she received extensive broadcast media coverage, including 3 appearances on The Steve Harvey Show, appearances on Dr. Oz, and local news affiliates on NBC, CBS, and Fox. She's also been featured in numerous print and internet publications as well as radio interviews. Now she shares what she's learned with other small businesses via prforanyone.com. Please join me in welcoming our panel moderator, Christina Davis.
Thank you.
I think I've got to interview the panel, unless that's your
Oh,
cue.
is that how? No, go ahead.
So I'm going to introduce our panel. Here's our panel. So we have Rebecca Barnes, publisher of Prince William Living Magazine. Stephanie Carter, editor, What's Up, Prince William. We have Greg Hambrick, online editor for InsideNOVA. Uriah Kiser, publisher of Potomac Local. Kari Pugh, executive editor, Prince William Times. And Stacey Shaw, editor of Bristow Beat.
Welcome our panel. All right, how many of you guys want more business, more customers, more clients? Every hand should be up. Come on, guys. How many of you would like to have hundreds of thousands of eyeballs on your business? Right? That's what these people here can do for you. This is gold. And so many people don't understand that. But what's so important is, these are all of our local media outlets. Don't pitch them all the same. Every single one of you can be in every one of these media outlets, but you have to pitch a story that is related to their specific media outlet. And I'll use myself as an example, because I've been in, I think, over half of them. InsideNOVA. I was just in a few weeks ago. One of my programs was a finalist for a big DC Innovations Award. So we got listed for that. Thank you, Bruce. Rebecca Barnes. When I launched Cosmetic, I was covered in there. Now that's like, Prince William Living is, community, feel good, those kinds of stories. So here's a local woman in the community invented a product. I think by that time I'd been on the Steve Harvey Show. Like there was a lot of, it was just a feel good community story. I've been in the Prince William Times. I was very honored last year to interview Hoda Kotb. So I pitched the story that here's a local business person. I live in Gainesville. I'm interviewing Hoda Kotb, big star, celebrity sells, about her journey from Virginia Tech, local school, how she got up to NBC, and then our sponsor was a Prince William County business. So it was a win-win-win, and we got in the paper that way. But I wouldn't have pitched that story to Uriah, because it's just not how he covers business. So when we go through this today, I really want you guys to take notes and pay attention the kinds of stories they're looking for. And write it down, because I always say these events are so cool and so fun, you get so excited, oh, they said all this great stuff, and then you walk out the doors of amnesia, and poof, it's all gone. And then you're pitching everybody the same. So make sure as we go through that you take notes, see what kinds of stories they like, because if you can pitch, as Laura said repeatedly, give them a story they can cover, make it easy for them. I've been over 250 media outlets because I know how to make it easy. And they are going to tell you today how to make it easy for them. So I'm going to start and go down the panel. Each person's going to talk about their publication, the kinds of stories they like to dig into some good and bad pitches if they have that. And I will tell you one funny story. I go to these events as well. So I went to a Washington Business Journal one, and I met the editor of the Washington Business Journal and told him what I did. He said, oh my gosh, everybody needs you, Christina, because he had just gotten an email that said, dear bracket, insert name here, close bracket. Don't do that. So make sure don't just send this blanket press release. So I'm gonna start with Greg with InsideNOVA. So why don't you tell us about the publication and the kinds of stories that you like to see.
Sure.
There's a microphone for Uriah.
Hello?
Yep.
There we go. Hi, Greg Hambrick with InsideNOVA. So InsideNOVA, you're probably familiar with it, InsideNOVA.com. We cover breaking news, obviously local governments, schools, but then we also cover obviously businesses, real estate, pretty much topics that impact the local community. And then we also have papers and coverage in North Stafford, Fairfax, Great Falls, Vienna. So if you're a company that works more broadly than just Prince William County, we'd be a source for you too. The perfect pitches for us or the perfect pitches for me, give us some time. We have weekly newspapers, so if you actually want it in print, you really need to give us some time. I had a pitch today that said come out tomorrow at 11:30, and the answer was no. but I did send a note back saying send us pictures, and you can send us video. The question had come up earlier about sending video. By all means, send us video, and we're happy to get that up on the website too. As easy as you can make it for us, and I'm sure everybody else will tell you the same, it really does help and go a long way to making your pitch stand out among the many other pitches that we get each day. So pictures is super helpful. I've known that this has been coming up for a few weeks, so I've been hyper aware of the pitches that I take. And something that's been really helpful for folks is sending out that reminder email to say, hey, I sent this out a few weeks ago. Not sure if you got it, or not sure if it made it through the rush of other emails. Usually it did, and I've sort of pinned it as something to come back to. But that reminder email has helped a few folks actually get their stuff up on our site. Let's see, and then. One of the tips that they had said earlier was about getting the news to the top, and one of the tips on your sheet here is, do you have something newsworthy? I would stress that too. I get some press releases where it's at the very last line, it'll say, this is the first yada, yada, yada. And if that's 8 paragraphs into a pitch, I probably didn't get to it if I'm not gonna take it. So if you've got something that's newsworthy or noteworthy, put it to the top. And then I'd say that there was a question about the worst pitch that you've got in the last year. Back when I was taking pitches for Atlanta, end of last year, we had a lawn and garden group, for some reason on their blogs, they had found census data that said, they had purportedly, that Atlanta had the least interaction with their local schools. And so it was an interesting pitch, but I knew where the census data was that they had pulled their information from. So I went to the source and found that they had completely misread the census figures. And in fact, Atlanta was one of the most closely tied to their local schools, not the ones that were abandoning their local schools. So I would say, I would definitely stress that if you're sitting in a pitch and you're not closely familiar with the topic that you're pitching, make sure that you got your facts right. Because if you burn a reporter, I was very glad that I knew where that information was and could fact check what they were sending me. But if you burn a reporter, they will not take another look at something that you're sending.
Great. Rebecca?
Okay, so point of clarification, are we answering all of the questions here or just one?
We can.
Oh, wait, I'll just do, the first question is specifically
so we can do
about
that. Yeah, talk about your publication. What kinds of stories do you like to see?
Yeah.
How can people in here get into your magazine?
I'll answer that one.
Okay.
So Prince William Living is a lifestyle magazine. It covers all of Prince William, Manassas, and Manassas Park. So what I tell people is if you're outside of that demographic, then we're not probably the outlet for you. If there's no tie-in to Prince William, Manassas, or Manassas Park, we're not going to run it. So it has to have some tie-in. Now, if I can, I'll refer you to someone else, one of my other colleagues here, but for the most part, we get inundated. I get about 300 emails a day, so it's a quick process. I don't know about everybody else, but it's like look, delete, look, move, look, delete, look, delete. So if it doesn't have that, it's getting deleted. You need to make that tie-in for us. We are a monthly publication in print, and we're daily online. So the second thing is our deadline. So just a few days ago, someone said, oh, hey, I'm wondering if I can get into the June issue. The June issue is at the printer. And I had to respond, and I said, well, actually, we're written out till October. Your story's not going to get in the magazine until October. But we can get you online right now, which is what everybody else can do too. So it's not a limiting thing, but our magazine is very specific. It's lifestyle, so it's arts, nonprofits, business, education and workforce development. It is essentially, our mission statement is quality of life, and so all of the components, health and wellness, everything that composes quality of life, that's what we are. So send us your pitches, but I will tell you that we kind of twist things to the better. So when we hear about, give the example last year of the shooting where we lost a resident and we lost a police officer, and that made national news, and we had 2 other officers that were shot and injured. And at night, I'm with Otoville Volunteer Fire Department, so I wear the other hat. I wear the pitch hat. I have to figure out pitches to talk to these guys to get my stories in as fire department. So we had a strong tie-in to that case, but I'm not going to run the cop murdered story. It's not what we do. And instead, we turned it around and we did a forum on domestic violence. We had 120 attendees. We had a panel like this, but it included social services, 2 SVU police officers, someone from social services, someone from ACTS, and we had a series of questions to try to teach people, how do you recognize domestic violence? What can you do if you think someone, your neighbor, is being affected by domestic violence? My point is, we take that and we turn it to what we do. So I would say, I wouldn't tell you not to send us things that aren't lifestyle, because sometimes we can find a way to plug it in. Just don't be upset with us if we don't run it. We don't do that kind of news.
What was the other question? That's it for Zed.
Okay, that's good.
One thing I want to reiterate that Rebecca said, and she gets 300 emails a day. That's when Laura was talking about the hook. You have to stand out. You can't just say, here's a story idea. You've got to do something that's going to hook them in to make them read that email.
Right. Even as when I'm wearing my fire department hat, even when I send out press releases to my colleagues here, if there's something that I can hook them with, I will. So, they see, yeah, fire, oh, it's from Rebecca, fire department, fire. But if we save 2 dogs, I put it in the title. Fire department saves 2 dogs. And they run it.
Right.
And they're like, do you have a picture of the dog?
What was the dog's name?
What was the dog's name? How old is it? What kind of dog is it? And they eat it up. They love it. So that's great. So that's how I tailor it to them when I'm trying to pitch those stories. I always say dogs, babies, and food. People love dogs, babies, and food. So, just think of that when you're making that pitch.
Uriah?
The time I came back from a fire and a dog had died and I didn't get the name, that was hell to pay in that newsroom that night. I don't think you were on that night, but I think somebody else was. If it were Kari here, believe me, it probably would have been worse. My name's Uriah Kiser, because Kari's a very tough editor, but she'll have her second here in a moment. My name's Uriah Kiser. I'm the publisher of Potomac Local News. We're an online news website for Prince William County, and we're not a newspaper. We're not a newspaper, and we're not a newspaper. And it took me about 5 years, 6 years to figure that out. When I started this company in 2010, I did everything the way I had been trained to do it from working in the newspaper, right? We have to take your press release and we have to write it in our own voice, and we have to go out and take our own photos, and we have to do everything ourselves. And ourselves was me, right? I started this business. I'm the only one working on this, and I realized that I cannot continue working as if I work at a newspaper because I don't. And when I realized that freed me up to really focus on what I wanted to cover in Prince William County. And what that is local government with a board of supervisors, the Manassas City Council, Manassas Park City Council. I'd like to cover a little bit about why the cops were on your street last night. That's interesting to me. I love to cover traffic and transit news. People love to read about what they're doing to make your commute better. Those and new businesses, like if there's a new restaurant coming, my God, if I post something about a new Fuddruckers or a new Bonefish, which is now closed, but at any new restaurant, especially in Woodbridge, people go nuts for this stuff. And those are the things that I like to do. The publisher of Potomac Local. These are the things that the stories that I like to write about. And everything else, I no longer worry myself with, because we're not a newspaper, and I get to do things a little bit differently and cultivate relationships with people like you a little bit differently. And we'd like to cover the news the same way we would cover it as a newspaper. We're still unbiased. We still report the facts. We still aim to get it right every day. But the way we go about things a little bit differently. We can do video. We can do phone interviews. We can go on site. You can. Send me stuff and I'll put it from a press release, as long as I add a little bit more to it. So we're a different operation, and it works out. We're online daily.
So you guys can see how if you're pitching your story to Rebecca, you're not going to pitch the same story to Uriah. You're going to have to you can all pitch any type of story. I'm sure your business is relatable, but think about how you would send something to Rebecca and how you would send it to Uriah. So Kari.
Hi, we are a newspaper. In fact, we're almost three newspapers. So last year, a group of local investors bought the Prince William Times, Gainesville Times, and Fauquier Times. And since then, we have launched 4 lifestyle magazines, an entertainment section called 29 Living, and Times Business, which is a tab about local business, and it covers both Fauquier and Prince William. We kind of edge into Culpeper, Loudoun, other areas, and we'll probably do more of that in the future. And the editor of She magazine, our latest, is here. So that's one thing we're proud of. But we are a newspaper foremost, and we do cover hard news. But we basically have an offering for anything that you might want to pitch. So you can email us, call us anytime. Despite having a large offering of products, we don't have a large staff. So what helps me is if you write it for us. Somebody was saying, you called me at 11:30 this morning and said, can you be there at 1 to cover this? Well, no, we can't. But if you send us photos that you took, or you send us a little write-up, we'll get it in the paper and we'll get it online, no problem. Another thing that helps is to build relationships. If I know you, like if Rebecca emails me, I'm gonna not gloss over it when I'm going through my 300 emails a day. If I know you, I'm more likely to actually read your email. Often I will put emails aside and say, I'm going to get to it later, and these two from my office can attest that I don't answer all the time. But because we get hundreds of emails a day, and a lot of them are from I get emails from the San Diego Zoo about their latest pet. We don't care.
Delete.
Yeah. So if it doesn't, I think Rebecca said, if it doesn't have some local connection or something that I think our local readers are going to be interested in, I'm going to delete it or put it aside and never look at it again. So building relationships is very important. One thing that you can do that would help that might spur us into writing your pitch would be offer it to us exclusively, or offer it to us first. Say, I'm going to give this to you on Monday, and I'm not going to give it to anyone else until a week from now. That probably would work for pretty much all of us. And we look for things that are broad interest, that have human interest. Businesses are pretty much the number one, besides breaking news. People love to hear about any new business.
Especially food.
Especially restaurants.
Over restaurants.
Restaurants. But the thing with who's closing?
Gander Mountain.
Gander Mountain closing. We got like 100,000 page views on that. It's kind of ridiculous, and it wasn't even a big story. So that's the kind of thing. What you're interested in reading in the newspaper, online, in magazines, that's what we're interested in putting in there. So if it's interesting to you, it's probably interesting to us. So that's.
And Kari, just keep the microphone because I'm going to have you address this.
Okay.
I've interviewed a lot of journalists, and one of the things I found is, like they said, 500. Imagine a national journalist gets 1,000 emails. They don't necessarily throw your email away. They put it in a file. If for like an evergreen type story, I actually heard back a year later. Somebody said, you pitched us this, it didn't fit in our calendar, now it does. Peekaboo Street had broken her foot and was in a boot, and they wanted to cover my product. But can you address that a little bit, that just because they don't hear back, it's not necessarily a no, it could be a not now?
Yeah, and that's what, following up with a follow-up email to say, hey, did you get this? you know, what do you think? It doesn't ever hurt. I mean, you know, I have a story idea file that I look at probably around Christmas time and when I have too many people on vacation. And thinking, okay, what can I pull out of here that we can fill the paper with or, you know, put online. So following up never hurts because if you badger us enough, we might just put it in there.
Well, Laura talked about me. I kept going.
Sorry.
What,
And then I work for-
I said if you badger me, I'm going to blacklist
So
you.
it works for some people and not for others.
You're done.
I have heard from journalists that say, don't pitch them the same story over and over again. If I pitched you 12 times this year, but everyone was a different story,
That's different.
that's different.
Well, yeah,
So just keep
that's-
that in mind when you're pitching. That one angle might not have worked, but here's another angle. And like I said, that's what Laura said. That's how I finally, it was National Healthy Foot Month, and ding, 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 she loved it, and that's how I got on.
Yep.
So, okay, Stephanie?
So What's Up Prince William is an online daily news website, and we cover Prince William County, as the name would imply. We're known as what we would like to call the good news people. We try to focus on positive things. We don't chase ambulances, we don't cover political campaigns. We want to talk about what your nonprofit is doing, who you're helping with your nonprofit. If you're a business that's going and then donating time or money or something to the community and giving back. And then the lifestyle type events, businesses opening. We just wrote about a new ice cream shop that opened in the city of Manassas yesterday, and that did really well. But we try to be extremely approachable. We are, like we said, the good news people. And we want to talk to you about your story and what's going on in the community. And this is our way to give back to the community. So that's just kind of our big bent on news. We don't really do formal, you have to have a press release a certain way. We're very approachable. We want you to come to us. We want you to email us or call us and talk to us about your ideas. And we will talk to you about, okay, maybe this doesn't work, or maybe we can tweak things. We want to work with you because we want to partner with people in the community. So that's just something that we focus on. The only thing I would say would be a bad pitch is if you tell me like you own a mattress store and you're giving 10% of your proceeds to a charity. I want to know what you're actually going to do to help in the community, not stuff that's overtly promotional. So that's pretty much what we do and who we are. We're very video focused. We do a lot of video. You'll see our camera over there. And just reach out to us. We like to talk to everybody.
Stephanie, I was going to ask you about that before you brought up the video. Do you want them to send you video? Would that be helpful for your platform?
Yes, because like that was mentioned earlier, we get a lot of people saying they need us to be somewhere the next day, or we need to be in 4 places at once, and we're a 3-person team, and we just can't. It's just physically impossible, and we have lives and families and stuff like that. So anytime you can send me information, anytime you can send me video and photos goes a long way. But we're definitely very flexible. We try to work with everybody.
Sarah?
Hi, I'm Stacey Shaw, and I am the editor of Bristow Beat, and I'm also co-owner with my husband Jason. So what makes us different is we're probably the most hyper-local of this group because we do focus on the Brentsville, Gainesville district, Manassas City, Haymarket, Nokesville. Obviously, I'm in Bristow. So I have to choose what I write about, as we all do, but I do breaking news, political news, school board. So as you know, you are competing with some outrageous politicians. That's kind of hard. You're competing with, like we said, we all love restaurant openings. Cabela's we went crazy for. If you're opening a winery or brewery, if you're holding an event at a winery or brewery, you might be more likely to get my attention. I think everybody just loves food, drink, entertainment. We're so happy that there's like Uptown Alley and some art studios. I like going to Jiffy Lube Live. People like reading about what concerts are coming. So I think entertainment is big. People might think we don't do human interest stories, but we do. If there's celebrities, if there's cute puppies. I'm also really interested in events, like we went to Nokesville Day, we'll go to like Haymarket Day, and that may be a good tie-in for what you're doing for your business. Someone from State Farm asked me, I think yesterday, but the week seems really long, she asked me, she said something like she's working with the beer garden at one of the Haymarket events. Is that a good thing for me to write about? And I said yes, because here I'm tying in her company, which she wants, but readers will get something they want to learn about. So I think that is a good pitch if you're doing something with robotics, Girl Scouts, if you're having a fashion show. What I just find kind of vanilla is, hey, we promoted a new person at our company. Because if it's not interesting beyond your industry, it's not that interesting to me and my readers. If the article is a little too technical, that people don't really know what you're talking about, that's not going to work either. The worst pitches I've gotten are just articles like, I'm here, I have a store, nothing's changed, but let me pitch to your audience so they can come to my store, whatever it is. And especially if I have someone who's advertising on the page for the same type of privilege, I'm not just going to give it to that person. So, you know, you can always try. If I do know you, I have met you at a networking event or spoken to you, I also will probably be more likely to work with you and notice you when you email me.
Awesome. I want to share a story that Bruce Potter talked about, and I learn every day too. So, you know, we talk about ribbon cuttings, you know, cover my ribbon cutting. He said, don't send me the picture of the mayor cutting the ribbon. He goes, if it's a cupcakery, show me a picture of the mayor taking a big bite of the cupcake. He's like, that's what I want to see. So as they're talking and you're thinking about stuff, think outside of the box. You want to be different. There are how many realtors in Prince William County? What can make you different? Everybody in this room has something that makes them unique and can stand out with any of them. So let's focus on really good pitches. Who, if you guys want to just come back down, you know, what, like short and sweet, you want bullets, you want statistics, you want, what is it that makes a great pitch that's something that's going to make you go, wow, I'm going to cover this?
So you want a hook, right? You want to give us something that we've not seen before, something that is new. Sorry, that was horrible. Thank you. I'll give you an example. Chipotle just built a new location in Woodbridge, right? Route 1 and O-Pits. And they pitched and pitched and pitched and pitched me, and I did not write about the brand new Chipotle. Why? Because how many other Chipotles are there in Prince William County, right? Now, when the first one opened, it was pretty cool. And maybe when the second one opened on the west side of the county, or wherever, I forget, east, west, I don't know, we wrote about it, right? But at the 7th, 8th location, you know, we're a community of 450,000. We're approaching 500,000 people in Prince William County, and we're growing. And that means that what used to fly is small time. Hey, we opened a store and we're here now. That would have been a news story, but because we're a change community, you need to figure out what is new and different and unique about what it is that you're trying to tell us. And the last thing before I pass the mic is I'll say, if you wouldn't pick up the phone and say, call your friend or your mom or your dad, and you wouldn't say, hey, guess what? Don't bother pitching me. Don't pick up the phone and call me. Because if it's not good enough for you to do that to your friend, and you're so excited about it, and you think it's so cool and unique, then our readers aren't going to think so either. But if you can pick up the phone and say, hey, guess what? Or send a text, do the same to us, because we want to know.
So I'll share one from a previous life before I did media. I've owned 4 businesses in Prince William. 3 of them were Business of the Year. And so
That's
before,
newsworthy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But nobody will write about me because they think I'm competition. But before I was press, I used to get press a lot because I knew how to pitch. Right? Yeah, you can't get stories written about you if you're press. So in a previous life, in another business I owned, I had a trucking company, and we were opening a warehouse. And I wrote your standard, you know, ribbon cutting, blah, blah, blah. And I knew a couple people were going to show up. It's a ribbon cutting. You're going to get people that are going to run your stuff. Now, this was before I was in the fire department, and I want to be clear, I am not telling you to set fire to things. But we had a fire. It was horrible. And we lost 2 units, 2 trucks, and it was awful. Obviously, they called the fire department. I was at the Chamber of Commerce on the executive board, and I had to leave, obviously. And so on my way back, I'm calling my insurance guy. I'm letting him know. And I got there, and I took some pictures, and I went, hey. And I contacted the press and said, hey, I got a spin for you, because fire sells. And we made it on the front page of the Washington Business Journal. which is the most press I have ever gotten in my career. So again, not telling you to set fire to things. Do not walk out here, because now I'm with the fire department. You give me in all kinds of trouble, so do not misquote me.
What was the story?
The story was that business finds itself in ashes, rebuilds, because of my connections and my relationships. Within 3 days, I was able to get new trucks, borrowed equipment, borrowed. I was able to immediately pick back up and kind of get things rolling, even though we had a colossal loss, all because of the relationships that I had built. I always try to, treat my peers as peers. And so even in that industry, I was able to call up my competition and get help. And so that's how we spun the story, and we ended up on the front page of the Washington Business Journal, which later paid off too, because then I had a mentor when I got into this field. So that was pretty awesome. So I don't tell you that from my Prince William Living perspective, I tell you that from your perspective. If something really terrible happens, try to figure out if there's some way that you can turn it around and make it, something good,
So Greg, what do you like in an email? If I'm going to pitch you tomorrow, tell me what would make you go, oh, this is perfect.
I need a week.
There you go. Write that down.
But a good art goes a long, and so a photo, a good photograph really does go a long way. And when you were talking about the best pitch that you've had, this is one where I got the pitch. It was a fundraiser for a local nonprofit. It was a nonprofit group that I'm interested in personally, so it had that appeal to it. So I was already writing it up, hadn't seen a picture, but they sent me 2 photos, and they were terrific. And it made the difference of getting up on the website somewhere to getting up on our Facebook page and getting promoted to all of our readers. So it really does go a long way. If you feel like you can't make a good photo and you can put in the investment to get somebody who can, if you know somebody, talking about connections, if you know somebody who knows somebody who can take a picture for you, a good photo can go a long way too. Not just, because we talk about, getting us to take the pitches, not just getting us to take the pitches, but getting your pitch to really, click with our readers and get a strong feedback from our readers. That's also important too.
Pass it back down. I'll tell you guys a quick story. When I told you about the Hoda Kotb getting in the Prince William Times, the reason I did that is because of a relationship that I built with one of the reporters there, and it had nothing to do with me or my business. We started the ice hockey club at Patriot High School and got the paper all excited about it, and they would come to he's like, we've got 300 kids coming to all these games. It was just voted the most popular sport at Patriot High School over football, if you can believe that. But I built a relationship. That was a feel-good because they loved the hockey stories that came out. So then when I was doing this event, I had a journalist that I could invite to the event, say, hey, all this connection to Prince William County, to Gainesville, why don't you come? So you had mentioned relationships. So that's another way to pitch a story, is when you build that relationship. But for the people here, Kari, what do you want to see in your email? When it comes in tomorrow, because you guys are all getting emails tomorrow, you know this.
Well, we do have Times Business, which we just recently launched. Is it quarterly or
No, Times Business comes out once a month on the last Wednesday.
Okay, so there you go. She's the editor. This is Susan McCorkindale. And so there are things that you might not see as a news story in the newspaper, or may not be, our top headline online. But we do names in the news, we do new businesses, we do people moving between businesses, people to watch.
How often is that in every edition, so people
No,
know?
monthly.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the separate,
Yeah, like in the news, because that's something
Generally,
everybody could be
depending
could
on
pitch.
space, yeah.
Generally, it's in every issue.
Yeah.
It does depend upon the space.
Yeah, generally in every issue. So there are things that you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not going to pitch this because they're not going to be interested. We might be, because we have we have space dedicated specifically to business news. So email me or Susan.
And I want you guys to think about your digital footprint and think about SEO. If you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, what do you guys do before you go to a meeting? You Google the person, right? You want to know if they check out. So people are going to do the same thing for you. So even if you're coming up just on little bits, but if it shows that you're standing out in the community, you will make a difference compared to your competitor. So when you're thinking, maybe I don't want to send that in, you might want to think again.
It's true. It's true. And you know, if your email, if you have a really long subject line on your email, it's going to cut off on my phone, so I'm probably not going to read it. I mean, it's just stuff like that. If you make it short, simple, hey, I saw you yesterday at this event, I have, you know, and then you can write, you know, here's my story idea, who would I send it to? But mainly, you know, if your subject line, you just don't want it to be boring. I mean, whatever you're trying to pitch, try to do it in those few words that you have, because that's the headline, and it's just like a headline on a website or a headline in a newspaper. That's going to determine if we're going to read it or not, just like it determines if you read the whole story or not. So.
And think about, I always tell people, write that headline as if it were the headline in the newspaper. And I have clients who have been on the cover of national magazines with their hook. Their email hook actually made the cover of the magazine. So think about that. Okay, Stephanie, what's a good pitch?
So particularly if you're pitching me to come film something, the thing that's going to get my attention is if you tell me I will have a specific space for you to film and I will have someone there to talk to you. I can't tell you how many times people want us to come cover their organization and I can't get anybody on camera to tell the story. And that's obviously a big part of our coverage. So if you want us to talk about you, you need to be willing to talk about you and have, whether it's yourself or somebody on your staff, tell me who's going to be that person, where I'm going to be, don't shove me in a corner. We really need to have the information and be ready to tell your story.
Stacey.
Yeah. Nobody put Stephanie in a corner.
So if they want to get into Bristow Beat, what do you want to see in the email?
I was just thinking, you need to have some kind of pitch. It can't just be a press release. Some of them, you announce that you have somebody new coming to your business, but you don't tell me why that's significant. There's a lot of flattering quotes from the CEO, but those don't amount to much for the readers. What do the readers really want to know? Is your business changing because you hired this person? Because we all want to know, how does this change the status quo? So just think of your audience when you're writing. Don't think of your boss and how, you know, you want, of course you want them to look good, but you need to have the readers interested. And I would like, if it's from a business, why did you start this business? Why did you get into this business? Are you changing careers? I knew an attorney that became a yoga instructor. Well, that's kind of compelling. So I used to sit down with business people, and a lot of people have these really interesting stories, but they don't often get shared.
And I'd like to know how important, especially for the more news-oriented ones, are statistics and data. I mean, you said you could have gotten burned, but do you like that in a pitch? Do you want to know 2 million people in this industry have X, Y, and Z?
I don't know if it's relevant. Like, I wrote about Patriot High School was rated by two things, by the Washington Post and by U.S. News and World Report. It's listed as one of the best high schools in Prince William County. And so my readers, many of them who have children that go there, are very excited about it. So it depends how relevant the industry is to the readers. If, you know, I mean, it's something you could always try to pitch.
I'm going to agree with a lot of what they've said here. One of the quotes from the CEO about how flowery everything is and how great everything is going to be and how wonderful we feel today. David Carr, one of my personal favorites, the late David Carr, was at the Washington City paper and went on to the New York Times. He said, "We don't do bullshit corporate portraiture. That's not what we do. That's not why we're here, right? We want to tell a story, and and we work for our readers, and we want to communicate to them because they have limited time, right? So we need to tell them why this story is important to them and how it impacts their lives." The other thing I was going to say is, and I think Stephanie brings up a very good point, is when we take time out of our, schedule, some of us are being paid, some of us are not, right? Some of us are entrepreneurial journalists, so we're giving our time to go out to your event. We produce content for all platforms, and that is print, that is web, that is photos, video. So be prepared. look nice that day. Put your nice dress on or your nice sport coat on and be prepared because the press is coming, right? And we produce content for all platforms. And if we come out there, and I loved your quote, and you said, be prepared to tell your story if you're not. Sorry, I should have wrote it down. But it's absolutely right.
So we want to talk about bad pictures.
Yeah, so let's, go ahead. Okay, real quick.
You didn't dress up for that fire the other night that I saw you at, what, 12:45 a.m.?
I did.
But she's a pro. She wears the hat, so yeah, she's a pro.
I had a department t-shirt on. Hey, they wake me up out of bed. I gotta go to these things as fire department.
So yeah, we're gonna hit
bad pitches.
We're gonna hit a couple bad pitches, and then I'm gonna call on you guys in the audience because I want you guys to leave here with potentially having a story covered, but we don't want anything. We want to hear the bad ones so we know what not to do.
Well, if you're friended with me on Facebook, you probably see a lot of these. I always change the names of the guilty, and I change the situation. I even wait a while so that nobody can figure out what I'm talking about. I sometimes change the sex, but in my own personal musing, I share these. So I think probably the biggest, obviously the whole, I don't want to buy an ad from you, but I want you to do a story on my company. I will smile at you, and you will go in a special part of my brain, and I will never forget it. Because you're not pitching me anything and you want something for nothing, and that's not how I work. That's not how any of these people work. And several of us own the publication that you're talking about. You're literally taking food out of my children's mouth, so that really irritates me. At least make it a story that my readers want to read, even if you're not willing to help keep our business in business. So if you're smart, you'll also advertise with some of us, all of us, something like that to keep the business going. But my favorite pitches are the ones where people say, I want you to come out to our event and cover our event. And I say, okay, well, do you have a media pass that we can? No, we want you to buy a ticket and work. Am I going to buy a ticket and enjoy myself as Rebecca Barnes, or am I going to work as Prince William Living? No bueno, that does not work. Okay, so don't ask me to buy a ticket to your event and then cover your event. That's so rude. Make it clear if you're giving them an invitation. So if you're calling me and saying, hey Rebecca, I want you to come to my event and sit at my table, then I will say, do you want me because I am witty and so much damn fun to be with? Or do you want me there as Prince William Living? I need to know that too, because I do get actually invited to a lot of things and I can't figure out, are they inviting me, or are they inviting me, the company? So make that clear as well. And then the third thing is don't put them at the worst table or not serve them food. I'm not kidding. There have been cases where journalists have been made to eat in the kitchen or not offered a meal at all.
And we get better stories that way, but that's not the story you
Oh yeah. Oh, we get the dirt because we're in the back.
A lot of journalists won't eat at a
And that's true, but don't treat us like a second-class citizen. Even if we're there to work, you don't treat us like a second-class citizen. It's rude. So that's a bad pitch. Buy my ticket, come to my event, but work. One or the other. So.
Anyone else bad? What do you not want to see on the email tomorrow?
One thing that I double back at from the first presentation is being polite when you are interacting with folks here. Sometimes it's that first email was really polite, and the next email is angry, bordering on aggressive. That is definitely not a way to get your story printed. And I know you get really invested in this stuff, and you probably spend a lot of time on the initial pitch, and so you get frustrated when you don't hear back from any press. But be courteous and professional, in future interactions, because some pitches just don't get picked up, but. Those are definitely the worst, is when somebody emails me back, I haven't heard from you.
Well, and if you're on TV and you get bumped. I had a segment on the Today Show that got bumped. The other day I actually had a girlfriend who it's called Camp Powerman, if you guys saw it on the Today Show, and literally her segment ended, and as they hit play, the heirs from Fox died. So they broke to special report. I was like, you just got so lucky, because that'll happen and they might not be able to fit you in again. So don't get angry with them though. You have to stay nice to them and then just stay in front of them, because if they liked your story once, but don't let that leave a bad taste first, and because that'll last forever, and they move around. So let's say you weren't nice to somebody at the local NBC, and then they head up to the Today Show. Well, they're going to remember you. So it's really, really important. If you get bumped or your story doesn't run, oh well, still be super nice. So any other? Stacey.
I've got invited to things as a reporter, and I put in all the time, the work, the photos, wrote articles, checked with people to get the spelling correct, and then they send out a press release. And this has happened too. I've hired a reporter or contributor to do this for me and paid them, you know, for their expertise and their time. And then there's a press release, and it's got a professional photographer doing it, and it's just as good. And so I'd like to know that, like, you know, because it helps make a decision on where I spend my efforts.
I think that's just being respectful to your industry and to the journalists. Oh, any other bad pitches before we let people try?
A bad pitch. Somebody told me that they're raising money on their GoFundMe to save the world, and if you just meet me in the back of the Haymarket Park at 5:30 on Saturday, you'll get all the details you need to know. And I actually called the cops on that guy. I'm for real. That came in 2 weeks ago. So don't pitch that. The other thing I would say is they tell writers to write what you know, right? If you're a reporter and you know a lot about government, then you write about government. If you're a food critic, you like to eat food, look at me, I love food. But at any rate, I think if you're also reading a trade publication, you know, what do you like to read? You know, whatever that is, pitch us because we're local, right? We're your first line to the local news, right? But if you read a website or a trade mag or something like that, maybe they'll find your pitch interesting as well. And especially if we're not finding a local angle for it, maybe they will in their publication.
All right, who wants to take this huge opportunity? I said this, oh yeah, everybody, okay. Your hand came up first, so tell us your name and your business, and let's give them your pitch.
First, I want to say thank you to all of you because you are great support. I work for Virginia State Parks, and Lee Sylvania is one of the parks in my district, and I just want to thank you because you are a great support. One of the challenges that I have is I work for the state. Turn that off, please.
It's off.
And we have protocols we have to follow. So a press release comes out from our public communications office, and it's boring. So I try to rewrite it and send it to you guys with a little note. I know the challenges because I work in a lot of rural areas with the newspapers. So if I am there and I'm doing the story and writing it, and then I do a blog or something and I send it to you, how long do you want the story to be? Do you want it like in a blog sense, quick and fast and easy and interesting, and how many pictures do you normally like, that type of thing?
So I think that you do have to consider what your goal is. Are you trying to get online or are you trying to get in print? So for us, probably like everybody else, if you want it, it's online, 600, 800 words, one really good photo at least that is horizontal. And this is important because I think all of our websites are set up, they'll cut you off. And I do a lunch with the publisher where you can come in and listen to what's best for us, but basically this. And I tell people, we don't have time to reconfigure your photos. So send us a photo that is landscape because we're moving at this pace. And if there's a hiccup, you go to the back of the line. So 600, 800 words, horizontal photo. Now, if you're trying to get into print, for us, this is going to turn into a 1,200 word item, but we can work on that because we can work off of the online story, take a bunch of quotes, maybe take some different pictures, maybe take a different angle and turn it into a bigger article. So, I'll let my colleagues tell you what's good for them, but I think overall 600, 800 words, a really good photo.
And I just want to clarify is that the other people speak too. Do you want an article actually written like that, or do you rather have your journalists write the article?
I want it. I would love it pre-written.
Because everyone's a little different.
Right.
Yeah, and as far as if you have a blog post, if it's 600 to 800 words a photo, that's great. A pro tip for other folks who might be blogging, if you haven't already done sort of eye tests to see how long folks stay on your site, they're not scrolling 6 or 7 or 8 times down the page to see what you said at the end of your 2,000 word manifesto. 600 to 800 is not just a good idea to pitch to us. It's a good idea if you're blogging on your blog site, and keep it short and something. You got to think somebody is waiting at the doctor's office and doing scrolls with their thumb, and think that way, and actually look at, if you're doing a blog post, actually look at it on your phone and sort of take that into account too.
Also forgot to mention, write it in third person, not first person.
Oh gosh.
Please.
I don't want
You guys
a
all
blog
heard that? That's
post
really
because I think a blog post to me indicates it's been published elsewhere, and I don't want to take up. Don't send me a link to something and say, here, use this. Put it in a Word document or put it in your email, because I don't know if we have the permission to use your blog post or not.
You always have permission to
Well,
use
maybe
it.
yours. And this happens a lot. We get people will send us a PDF that's a bunch of pictures and graphics about whatever event's coming up, and hey, can you run this? Well, no, I can, but it's going to take me 20 minutes to decipher what this means and write it up. Write it for us. Write it for us.
Now, if somebody sends you a picture, I'm going to ask you talked about the picture. If it's these 4 people are in the picture, do you need releases from everybody
we
in
don't
the
need a
picture?
release.
A stinking release? What's a
Unless-
release?
No, we don't. But don't send us a picture and don't identify who the people are or what it is in the picture. We need to know who they are.
Send us a really grainy, dark photo.
Really blurry. But I did want to say, 600 to 800 words for me, that's too many words. Shorter is better. 400 to 500 words. If it's some event that and you have a few pictures, that's all we're going to really be able to use. If we're going to do something that's 1,200 words or even 800 words, we're going to write it ourselves. We're going to have a reporter go and write it ourselves, because, people, attention spans are short, phones are small. 600 to 800 words is too many.
Do you prefer to send somebody out then?
It depends on what it is.
We always just do fun stuff.
Well, I know. You guys are. But, if you're having a fishing tournament for kids, I'm probably not going to send anybody out to that. But if if you send me pictures and 400 words about it, I will run it. So.
I'll give you a great example when Potomac Local went to Pennsylvania, where there was a Sea Scout ship out of Gainesville, so we went out there that day, and because the ship was named after one of the victims at Sandy Hook in Connecticut.
That was a great
story. It's a great story, right? So we went out there and we spent a few hours, right, taking pictures, talking to people. It's a good story. I think for me, you say write it in the third person. I don't want it in the third person. Okay, I think my readers know what the deal is. If I can easily on my website say, this is from Tom Smith, and Tom says, this is what Tom says, that's how I want it, right? I work for the web. I'm not trying to pass it off as something that I've written. I just say who wrote it, and I will put it up there because it's a credible source. If it's not a credible source, it's not going to go on my website, and I'm not going to put my name on it. The other thing that I would say is pitch-wise, I lost my train of thought, but anyway, sorry.
Moving on.
We actually really enjoy covering the Virginia State Parks because our target audience is kind of moms with young kids, and we like to talk about what they can go do with their kids. So it's actually a really good kind of symbiotic relationship there. I'm a little more old school. I like to get a release or a story and take parts of it and rewrite it. I know some people just put it up.
Then can you talk about copied content? Because that's where I was going. Can you talk about why, if you send it to one organization and they run it, we don't want to run it the same thing because of Google and copied content? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's kind of the back end that people don't realize is kind of the magic of Google. So if you send me something and I read it and you've put it up first, or another publication's put it up first, and then I put it up verbatim, Google actually dings me in the search ratings. It makes it harder to find your article, makes it harder for other people to find our website. So that's part me being old school and part I don't want to mess up our website. But we really like getting invites to go to things like that. We've gone to Lee Sylvania Park many times. It's right down the street from our office. Because we like to go do video. But we generally like 500 words, 3 to 4 pictures, video if you have it, and then I try to rewrite it and rework it.
So
So we like short too. My husband, Jason, who I say is my partner, is always like, see, my article got more hits than yours, and it's 300 words, and you wrote 900 words, and like, spent 3 hours on it, and who's reading your article? So that's frustrating for me. But also, there's some articles I get, especially about art events, like a ballet or something that's just too descriptive, and it's like just the facts, ma'am. And I know that it's something that maybe lends itself to description, but who are you to say that this dancer is fabulous or wonderful? You know, those kind of adjectives really can be applied to anything. I don't think any of us like that, right?
That's your thing.
That's
Not
my
so much.
mantra. If you are going to send us a press release, and I do this with all my writers and have for many years, go through it before you send it to me and take out every single adjective. Take them all out. Because if you don't, I'm going to. You don't need them. They don't tell you anything. If you're using good words, if you use good words, you don't need an adjective.
Well, and that's really important because you said take them all out. So you don't want a PDF, you want a Word document
No,
of a press
never
release.
send
So
you-
that's
No, never
really
send us
important.
PDF.
Remember that space in the back of my brain? Send me a PDF, you're going in there too.
So
Put it in
really,
a Word
really
document
important.
Or put it in an email.
Yep.
Okay.
We want to be able
got
to
it.
copy and
You
paste
can't
it.
copy and paste it.
So, okay, we've got just a few more minutes. Go ahead, Greg.
So the word story means different things to different people. What do you look for? What makes a good story for you? For me, it's the context, the conflict, the resolution. But what makes a good story for you?
So because we don't do ambulance chasing, ironically,
What's that?
and we don't do like controversy, for us, it is exactly what you said, you know, issue, problem, resolution, or this is a great story because this person overcame odds, or they built something from scratch, or they took a situation. I mean, the story here, perfect. You injured yourself. You had this ugly black boot, and you were like, ew. And that's how her business was born. And then on top of it, she built a second business because she said, oh, I got to figure out how to get into the press. And now she built a second business. Don't hate her.
Yeah.
It's easy to do, but don't hate her. So those types of stories, how people brought themselves back from the ashes, or that they're doing this selfless thing. That's kind of what we want to see. And we do business, and we do, but we don't really do local government. And we do from the standpoint of what they're doing for you, but you know, I don't want any of the controversy where some of the other folks here, like that's exactly what they're good at, and that's what they want. So I think well, I mean, you know, a lot of people at this table have uncovered things, and that's awesome. It's not what we do, but it's necessary. It's needed. So I think this is a nice even array of types. So it depends on what your story is. If your story is about your business or your nonprofit, then, you know, for us and for a lot of folks here, you know, find the with them. What's in it for the reader? What are they going to get out of this? Not just, I want to tell everybody about what I do.
So every week I have my reporters send me a list of the stories they're working on and what they have to, you know, they say the title of the story, and then they have to list, why do we care? That's what you want to do when you pitch us. Why do we care?
And think of the audience, right?
Well, yeah, why-
Every audience is different. Even
But
some
you
of
have to ask that of any
the
of these
similar ones,
publications, right?
but what's appealing to their
I
audience?
mean, I think everybody here would want to know, when you get an email, why do I care? You know, why do people care about this?
So in our newsroom, we like to do what's called the sniff test. That's what ST calls it. And it's kind of hard to tell. Sometimes it's really hit or miss. For me, it's basically, how does it make someone feel? If it feels good, if it's something that makes people happy when they read it, that was listed earlier, you know, try to use those words. What does it do? If I write something, will it make something happen? So, for example, there's a local pizza shop that's been in Woodbridge for 31 years. They're losing their lease. And we wrote about it because we wanted to let people know that they're leaving and that they're a fixture in the community and that they're going to another location. By writing that, we were able to let people know, and we're getting all kinds of comments and people sharing their stories of their memories going to that pizza place. And now they know, and they're saying, we're gonna go to that new location. So if I can generate some sort of like cause and effect, or if I make somebody feel good, that's basically what we want.
I just realized the nice test for this to think about feelings is we do a lot of articles that we share on Facebook, and now there's a little icon. So do you get a thumbs up? That's good. Do you get a a heart or an angry face. You know, all of those are emotions that are going to drive a story, and it's just human nature that we want to read. And even if it makes us angry, it's still a feeling. But you know, you don't want to be angry all day. You want to read happy stuff as well. And like Stephanie was saying, I wish Wegmans would have sent me something, because I just didn't have. No, well that they donated food, like a whole lot of food, to the Haymarket food pantry, and I just didn't have time to follow up on that. But I'm like, but that's the story I actually want a press release or a phone call about, because I think it is meaningful.
So I think that
You can talk to many different journalists, and they'll tell you that we're out to change the world. We want to change the world. We want to make an impact, and we want to do that. That's not my job, right? If you talk to me, I'm there to write about what happened, what I saw, and why it affects you, the taxpayer, right? Why you're going to have to pay more on your home bill because the taxes went up, or why the mayor didn't build that park he promised you he was going to build. And so I think that while our work does make impact in the community, one example is when Bad Wolf Brewery was going to expand, or they were looking to expand at Tackett's Mill in Lake Ridge, they could not get the permits to do so because the county had not allowed those types of developments, breweries, in shopping centers yet. So I wrote about that, and I thought that was a very interesting story, because here you have a very successful brewery in the city of Manassas looking to do their first expansion, and they looked at Prince William County to do that, but the county, despite being always open for business, wasn't open to this business. Well, 2 weeks later, they changed the rules and allowed those types of businesses to come in, and that's why you see, you know, over at Stonebridge you have a brewery, and over behind BJ's you have a brewery, and Tin Can and what have you. But the end of that story is Bad Wolf actually expanded, but they stayed in the city of Manassas, and the Prince William County people lost out. So that was interesting impact to write that story, and then 2 weeks later have that change. Did Potomac Local drive that? I don't think so. I think the county was going that way anyway. But in the end, it was an interesting story, because here's a successful business that wanted to expand into our community in Prince William County and couldn't do so, and here's why. And the tax revenue again now goes to the city of Manassas.
All right, well, we're out of time. Thank you guys. It was amazing. You guys got a lot out of this, I'm sure. Yep.